why do we trust photographs? What if we shouldn't?
Because we assumed they tell the truth. Man Ray destroyed that assumption.
You're likely holding a screen right now. Or maybe it's resting on the table next to you.
Swiping through hundreds, maybe thousands of images.
Right. I mean, news footage of a distant city,
Mm-hmm.
vacation memories from a friend, or, a historical black and white portrait.
And as you scroll, you are operating under a silent, deeply ingrained agreement.
An invisible contract, really. You assume that what you are seeing is real.
We treat the camera as a regime of testimony, a mechanical eye that simply records what exists.
Because we believe it removes human bias. We think the machine cannot lie. It is just, glass, light, and chemistry.
But this is an ideological lie. Photography was marketed to us as objective truth.
And we're going to tear that marketing apart.
Completely.
Today's deep dive is, it's not just a look back at history. It is a mission to shatter a century-old illusion.
We are pulling from an in-depth analytical article from SanalSergi.com.
Yeah, to explore how one artist changed absolutely everything, Man Ray.
Long before deepfakes.
Right.
Long before AI-generated images made us question our own eyes, Man Ray was already proving that the image could be weaponized.
He didn't just develop photos in his darkroom. I mean, he transformed the darkroom into a dangerous laboratory, a place where reality is bent, fractured, and ultimately broken.
He proved that photography is not a window into the world. It is a surface where the world can be rewritten.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have this established certainty in the early 20th century. People genuinely believed a photograph equals reality.
Without question.
So if photography is a lie, how do you even begin to prove that to a public that trusts the medium implicitly? I mean, what happens when we completely remove the machine that supposedly captures the truth?
The illusion drops, the medium is stripped to its bare bones.
The machine itself is the problem.
Exactly. To understand this, we have to look at Paris in 1922. Man Ray publishes an album called Chant Delicieux, and he introduces a technique called the rayograph.
And this is where the definition of photography starts to unravel. Because a rayograph doesn't actually use a camera.
Not at all. There is no camera in this process, no lens.
Wait, no lens.
No viewfinder to look through, no framing, just light-sensitive paper and the raw physical world.
Let's make this vivid for you. Imagine the physical reality of a 1920s darkroom. It smells strongly of metallic chemicals. It's bathed in that eerie, deep red safe light.
Man Ray takes a sheet of photographic paper.
Right, which is coated in silver halides.
And instead of putting it inside a camera, he lays it flat on a table. The camera is an eye. Man Ray blinded it.
So he's just working with the paper and the space around him.
He took everyday objects, a household fork, a metal spring, a pair of scissors, and he placed them directly onto the chemical surface of the paper.
Just resting them right there on the wet chemicals.
Then he simply exposed them to a raw light bulb.
But see, this is where I have to push back. I am trying to wrap my head around this. If there is no lens capturing the world, is it even a photograph?
It challenges the very premise.
Right, because we define photography by the act of capturing a scene, of freezing a moment in time through optics.
Through a mechanism.
Yeah. Without the machine, without the lens, it feels less like a picture and more like a ghost. Or like a footprint left at a crime scene.
It is exactly a footprint. It is a physical trace of light.
A physical trace.
When you remove the lens, you obliterate depth. You destroy perspective. Volume vanishes entirely. The world is flattened into pure contact.
Because the objects themselves are blocking the light from hitting the paper.
Yes. The light hits the object blocks the light, the resulting mark is a collision.
Wow.
And because of this, the objects lose their identity. A fork is no longer a tool for eating.
Stripped of its volume.
Flattened by the light, it becomes a violent white skeleton against a pitch-black void.
It stops being a fork?
The object stops existing as a functional thing entirely. The photograph stops looking at reality and merely touches it.
This is not an image.
This is an intervention.
The rayograph completely breaks our basic assumption of what a picture even is. I mean, it reduces it to just light and obstruction.
It is the 0 degree of photography.
But Man Ray didn't stop at removing the camera. If you take a step back and actually use the camera again, what is left to destroy?
He goes after the very thing that makes sight possible, light itself.
Right, and we inherently trust light. It's primal.
It is how we orient ourselves.
We turn on the light in a dark room to feel safe, to reveal the truth of our surroundings, to make the unknown knowable. But Man Ray turns light into a weapon of visual instability.
He weaponizes illumination. He proves that light does not just reveal, it distorts.
Okay, so look at the year 1929.
He utilizes a technique called solarization. The defining piece here is his portrait of Lee Miller.
I've spent time looking at this portrait, and honestly, my brain is just confused by it. It looks like a mistake. The lighting is, well, it's completely wrong.
It originally was a mistake. Solarization is a technique born from a darkroom accident.
An accident.
A sudden, unintended burst of room light hits the photographic paper while the image is still sitting in the liquid chemical developer bath.
I mean, most photographers in 1929 would pull that paper out of the bath and throw it directly in the trash.
It's a ruined exposure by traditional standards.
The light leak destroys the intended image.
But Man Ray harnessed it, because that burst of light violently inverts the tones of the image.
Wait, let's explain the mechanics of how that actually happens. Why does a second burst of light completely mutate the reality of the image rather than just, making it brighter?
It comes down to chemistry. When that sudden flash of light hits the wet paper, the parts of the image that are already dark have exhausted their silver halides.
They're maxed out.
They have no more chemical capacity to react, they stay dark.
But the light parts.
Exactly. The light parts, like the unexposed pale skin of Lee Miller's face, suddenly overexposed, they flip.
Dark becomes light. Light becomes dark.
Complete inversion.
So you have this chemical border war happening on the paper itself.
Which creates the defining feature of solarization. The Mackey line.
The halo.
A sharp, dark outline that forms exactly at the border where the light and dark areas are fighting.
It traces the borders of the human face.
But it doesn't define them. It melts them.
Looking at that portrait of Lee Miller, it causes deep, deep psychological discomfort. I mean, we expect light to be our ally, to show us a human face.
We expect warmth.
But here, light actively betrays us. The soft warmth of human skin is entirely gone. It stops being flesh.
It is entirely alienated.
Because of that tone inversion in the Mackey line, her face turns into this fluid, cold, metallic surface. It looks exactly like liquid mercury.
It turns a familiar face into a shedding shell.
Why does it feel so unsettling, though? It's just a picture of a woman, but it feels so alien.
Because light no longer explains reality in this image, it dictates a new one.
It overrides reality.
Your brain registers the geometry of a human face. It knows logically that it is looking at a woman, but your eyes see cold metal.
The visual data contradicts the cognitive data.
Seeing happens, but recognition fails entirely.
A photograph doesn't show reality.
It convinces you it does.
Man Ray broke that illusion.
He severed the trust between the viewer and the light. The viewer is left stranded.
Which brings us to a terrifying conclusion.
Yeah.
Because if light betrays us, if the very medium of sight is compromised, then the things the light touches are lying to us too.
Nothing is safe.
Our safest possessions, our own bodies, they become alien. They become threatening.
When meaning dissolves, the familiar becomes monstrous.
I want to look at two specific pieces that illustrate this violent defamiliarization. Because Man Ray doesn't just do this with chemicals, he does it with physical objects.
He brings the distortion to the physical world.
Right. Tell us about the piece from 1958 called Gift.
It is a physical sculpture, a domestic iron, heavy cast iron.
The kind of object deeply associated with care, with smoothing out wrinkles, with warmth and, restoring order to a household.
A completely benign object.
But he alters it.
Man Ray solders 14 sharp brass tacks straight down the center of its smooth bottom plate, pointing outward.
I remember seeing a photo of this for the first time, and it is viscerally upsetting. It's absurd, yes, but it's also terrifying.
It creates an immediate tension.
It's like waking up in your own house and your safest possessions are armed against you. If you try to use that iron, it will shred your clothes.
It will destroy what it was meant to care for.
It'll tear right through the fabric of your life. The familiar becomes an active threat. Why does simply adding tacks to an iron create such a strong reaction in the viewer?
The psychology here is precise. An object exists in our minds entirely via its function. That is how we categorize the world to feel safe.
An iron irons?
A cup holds water, remove the function, and it is instantly alienated. It becomes a hostile entity.
And he doesn't just stop at domestic objects. I mean, he does the exact same thing to the human form. Let's talk about the 1924 piece, Le Violon Dong.
It is a photograph of a woman's naked back.
She's wearing a turban, sitting facing away from the camera, but painted directly onto the photographic print, right on the curve of her waist, are the two F-holes of a violin.
It is the ultimate objectification.
It completely strips her. When a human back becomes a wooden instrument, the body is stripped of its identity. It's no longer a person. It feels like it's not even flesh anymore.
It is no longer an organism. It is a surface. Man Ray fragments the body to destroy its narrative.
A portrait usually tells you who someone is. It invites you to understand their mood, their history.
This image tells you that the person does not exist. There is only geometry. When the image rejects human wholeness, the viewer's meaning shatters.
You look at it, and your brain naturally searches for empathy. You want human connection when you see a human form.
You demand it.
But the image denies you that connection. It forcefully offers you an instrument instead.
And this is deliberate destabilization. He is dismantling the logic of the viewer, piece by piece.
Let's trace the steps here. First, he took away the camera with the rayograph. Then he corrupted the light with solarization. Then he alienated our safe objects and fragmented our bodies.
A systematic breakdown.
If the camera, the light, and the objects are untrustworthy, who is actually in control of the image?
No one. Control is an illusion. He yields it to chance.
This is where the structural collapse of the photograph becomes a psychological collapse for the viewer. We really need to talk about the actual biology of seeing.
It is a physical reaction.
Because there's a mechanical reason why Man Ray's work feels so disruptive. How fast does the human brain process a visual image?
Roughly 1/11 of a second, a fraction of a heartbeat.
It's incredibly fast. And it's not just a neat party trick of the brain, it's an evolutionary survival mechanism.
It kept us alive.
You open your eyes and your brain instantly categorizes the visual data around you to keep you alive. This is an apple, I can eat it. This is a chair, I can sit. This is a shadow, I am safe.
We survive by naming things quickly.
Exactly. We demand meaning instantly packaged. It's a biological imperative. But Man Ray intentionally jams this neurological system.
He creates a glitch.
If you look at his 1927 film, Imak Bakia, or some of his more complex layered rayographs, he creates visual scenarios where that 1/11 of a second categorization process hits a brick wall.
The brain attempts to classify. It fails. It attempts again. It fails.
And when the brain trips like that, we panic. We feel an existential dread because we are suddenly blind in plain sight.
The mechanism breaks.
We are looking at something, our eyes are working perfectly, but we cannot name what is in front of us.
But you must understand, chance is not chaos here. It is not just throwing things at a wall to see what sticks.
It's intentional.
It is directed uncertainty. Man Ray sets the parameters. He chooses the objects, the chemistry, the light, but he allows the physical process to resolve itself without his absolute command.
He lets the material speak.
The image refuses to deliver a clean answer.
You see it.
But you can't process it.
That's the fracture.
That fracture is the space where the conscious mind surrenders.
And where do we go when the conscious mind surrenders? I mean, when we can't rely on logic or light or function, we go into the dark.
The unconscious space.
We move from physical distortion into pure psychological disruption. That delay in meaning, that biological failure to categorize the image, pushes the viewer out of reality entirely. It forces us into the unconscious space of a dream.
It forces us into surrealism.
But we really need to clarify what that word means in this specific context.
Okay.
Usually when people hear the word surrealism, they think of a very specific visual aesthetic.
They think of Salvador Dali.
Right. Melting clocks in a desert, men in bowler hats with green apples floating in front of their faces.
That is illustrative surrealism. It is simply painting a weird picture using traditional logic.
But Man Ray is doing something else.
Man Ray's photography is entirely different. Surrealism here is not a visual aesthetic. It is a structural break.
It mimics the exact architecture of a dream. Think about your most intense, unsettling dreams. In a dream, everything is visually clear. You can see the wallpaper, the light coming through a window, the faces of the people around you.
But logically, it is entirely unexplainable.
The cause and effect are severed. Gravity doesn't work right. Time loops. The space is recognizable, but the rules governing that space are broken.
And a dream doesn't tell a coherent story with a beginning, middle, and end.
It just triggers a state of tension. You wake up sweating, not because a monster chased you with a knife, but because the geometry of your living room was somehow hostile, or because a familiar face suddenly belonged to a stranger.
Man Ray freed photography from narrative. It is no longer about what happened.
Right. The photograph is no longer a historical record of an event in 1920s Paris.
It is about what can be triggered in the viewer's unconscious mind right now. He turns the photograph into a psychological tripwire.
He stops showing you the world, and he starts showing you the glitches in your own mind.
He proves that the photographic medium is perfectly suited to bypass intellect entirely and strike directly at the subconscious.
So what does all of this mean for you, the listener, today? Why does a 100-year-old French avant-garde darkroom manipulation matter to you right now, in the present moment?
Because Man Ray was a prophet.
Think about it. Think about the screen you are holding. Every single time you use your smartphone, every time you apply a filter that subtly smooths your skin, widens your eyes, or alters the lighting of a room,
It is all manipulation.
every time you scroll past an AI-generated image of a politician or an event that looks entirely indistinguishable from a real photograph, you are living in the synthetic reality Man Ray warned us about a century ago.
The visual landscape you navigate daily is built on the very instability he discovered in the darkroom.
We think we are documenting our lives. We take photos of our dinners, our vacations, our families. We think we are preserving reality.
An illusion of control.
We still carry that 1920s assumption that the machine doesn't lie. But photography is not innocent. It never was. From the moment Man Ray put a fork on a piece of paper and turned on a light bulb, it became a battleground of manipulation.
Photography no longer represents reality. It reconstructs it.
This deep dive is based on an in-depth analytical article published on SanalSergi.com. It is also part of the SanalSergi Photography History podcast series. We invite you to explore more content on SanalSergi.com.